You're listening to Quantum Harry the Podcast, a podcast version of the book Quantum Harry, A Unified Theory of the Potterverse by B.L. Purdom. Episode 26, Until Someone Loses an Eye. This episode is part 2 of a 5-episode arc about games, toys, and fairy tales in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. So if you missed episode 25, The Wand Game, you should go back. The easiest way to locate any episode you want to listen or re-listen to is to go to the Quantum Harry Twitter page at QH Podcast and click on the link in the pinned tweet that takes you to the Quantum Harry episode guide, which has links to all of the episodes in audio and video formats, plus links to blog posts related to some episodes. There's also a handy link near the top of the episode guide to the Quantum Harry and General HP Discussion Facebook group. Discuss Quantum Harry, ask questions about the episodes, or talk about and celebrate the Harry Potter series in general. You can also find it by searching on Quantum Harry. All ages are welcome. Last time I focused on the Wand Game in Deathly Hallows. In this episode, I'll look at dangerous games in particular, hence the title, which comes from the old expression, "It's all fun and games until someone loses an eye." Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows includes many dangerous toys and games. While cleaning out his school trunk, Harry finds a broken toy, a fragment of an enchanted mirror Sirius gave him. James and Sirius used twin mirrors to communicate while in separate detentions, which must have happened a lot for them to create these toys. The mirrors are kindred spirits to the mirror of Erised, in which Harry sees his family. When he finds it, he has no reason to think of it as anything but a keepsake to remember Sirius. He assumes its partner was thrown out or is at Grimmauld Place. When he's later imprisoned at the Malfoys, the mirror fragment falls out of the pouch Harry carries it in, and he sees a blue eye in it remarkably like Dumbledore's. He thinks of it as Dumbledore and calls for help. It is a Dumbledore. Like his brother, Aberforth Dumbledore understands games. He sends Dobby, a disregarded, childlike house elf, to help Harry. Kreacher was able to return home when he followed an order from a master. The same power lets Dobby take Ollivander, Luna, and Dean, prisoners with Harry, Ron, and Hermione, to Shell Cottage. Once again, elves moving around in ways that wizards cannot isn't taken into account by those who dismiss elves, who are often the same people who dismiss games, toys, fairy tales, and children. Dobby dies before saying who sent him, so Harry doesn't learn until later that Aberforth has the twin to Harry's mirror, which was stolen by Mundungus Fletcher and bought by Aberforth, who says his brother Albus told him what it was before his death. The Order attempts to move Harry out of Privet Drive in the first winner-take-all game in Deathly Hallows, which is analogous to an even more dangerous-than-usual Quidditch match. Rather than 7 players, Harry's side has 14, 6 impersonating him. At least 4 times that number are on Voldemort's side. Each pair on Harry's side is a unit, a Harry and a partner. Mundungus Fletcher's cowardice leads to Alastor Moody's death, though Moody was paired with him specifically because he was considered unreliable. Instead of 2 teams with 2 seekers both pursuing a snitch, Death Eaters are trying to catch Harry, and the Order's trying to keep him. Many times earlier in the series, Harry is a metaphorical snitch. Now the metaphor becomes literal. In a battle very similar to a Quidditch match, Harry is the snitch, and if Death Eaters catch him, they win. Harry's known for flying, so the plan does not call for him to use a broom, his usual Quidditch weapon and preferred transportation. He loses his firebolt almost as soon as they're set upon. It's the start of Harry being stripped of his usual defenses and weapons in the book's first half, culminating in his wand breaking. When Ron helps Harry to acquire the Sword of Gryffindor from the pond in the Forest of Dean, this accompanies another baptism for Harry, because Ron pulls him from the water and saves him from being strangled by the Locket Horcrux. Ron now morphs from an ordinary archetypal wise old man to the Godfather variant of the wise old man, as I talked about in episode 2, This Old Man. The metaphorically reborn Harry, baptism is a symbolic rebirth, now begins to rebuild, restoring one missing piece of himself after another to become whole and complete again until Voldemort kills him. In addition to his broom, another part of Harry that he loses during the flight from Privet Drive is his snowy owl, Hedwig. The reason for Fawkes's name wasn't completely clear until the 5th book, Rowling's version of the Gunpowder Plot, as I talked about in episodes 20 to 22. Before this, his name just seemed like an amusing joke. Hedwig's name also takes on greater significance in Deathly Hallows, chiefly because of the sequence in which she dies. It certainly seemed poetic that Harry's owl, whose name he found in a magic book, had the same name as the patron saint of orphans, Saint Hedwig of Silesia. She married Henry I of Silesia and eventually had 4 sons and 3 daughters, including Henry II, who was called Henry the Pious. In England, those christened Henry are usually called Harry. This is why Prince William's brother isn't called Prince Henry, his given name, but Prince Harry. There are also exactly 3 female decoys flying with Harry: Fleur, Hermione, and Tonks. It's as if St. Hedwig's 7 children, 3 daughters and 4 sons, one of whom was called Henry, aka Harry, are all flying from Privet Drive. A reversal of St. Hedwig's witnessing her son Henry's death occurs when Harry witnesses his owl Hedwig's death. It would have been far more secure to move Harry with the Dursleys before his birthday to a safe house whose location was unknown to Death Eaters. The blood protection provided by Petunia would have followed him as it did when the Dursleys and Harry fled from the Hogwarts letters. Then Harry could have remained at the safe house, and the Dursleys, in disguise or transfigured, could have moved elsewhere. But it never seems to cross Rowling's mind to do this in a way that is not a nightmarish version of a Quidditch match. Even in a book with no literal Quidditch, she maintains this pattern. Throughout the series, J.K. Rowling equates Harry and snitches. She's written twice about Ginny catching a snitch from under Cho's nose, implying that she will catch Harry. Ginny and Harry's celebratory kiss in the Gryffindor common room comes after she again catches the snitch before Cho in Half-Blood Prince. In Deathly Hallows, the description of Ginny's bedroom prominently includes a poster for the wizarding band The Weird Sisters from the unexpected task, the Yule Ball, the task that was more about love than war, as I talk about in episode 18. Next is a poster of Gwenig Jones, captain of the all-witch Quidditch team, the Holyhead Harpies, for whom Ginny will play when she's older. Rowling consistently links Ginny and Quidditch and links her with other games, such as the chess game between Harry and Ron at the end of Order of the Phoenix that foreshadowed Harry and Ginny getting together, which I mentioned in episode 19. Victor Crumb even wonders, at Bill and Fleur's wedding, what the point is, quote, of being an international Quidditch player if all the good-looking girls are taken. Victor also thinks success in Quidditch should, for him, mean success in love. Soon after the description of Ginny's room focused on posters related to games, she's kissing Harry, quote, as she had never kissed him before. Harry, however, is going off to the world's most complicated scavenger hunt, a winner-take-all game, and cannot enjoy, quote, blissful oblivion right now. She's twice caught Harry the Snitch before his ex, and Ginny will play professional Quidditch, highlighting her warrior status and marking her as Harry's equal. But he must finish his games before he can catch her. When Harry and Hermione are about to go to Godric's Hollow, we're tipped off again that this will involve a battle because Hermione reads this passage from A History of Magic. Most celebrated of these half-magical dwelling places is, perhaps, Godric's Hollow, the West Country village where the great wizard Godric Gryffindor was born, and where Bowman Wright, wizarding smith, forged the first golden snitch. This detail seems to exist solely to link the mock war of Quidditch to Godric's Hollow. Again, Harry is equated with snitches. The village that's the birthplace of all snitches is also his birthplace. Harry and Hermione find Grindelwald's sign, really the symbol of the Deathly Hallows, on Ignotus Peveril's grave in Godric's Hollow. They also discover a photo of young Grindelwald, who stole the Elder Wand, in Bathilda Bagshot's house, where they battle Nagini and Voldemort, barely escaping with their lives. All of this is immediately prefaced by a reference to Godric's Hollow being home to the creator of the Golden Snitch, and Harry is the metaphorical snitch Voldemort is seeking. This makes Voldemort another opponent with the same battle rank as Harry, another similarity between Harry and his mortal enemy. When he returns to Harry and Hermione, Ron brings a wizarding wireless radio so they can hear Potter Watch, an underground radio program hosted by Lee Jordan, who used to commentate Quidditch matches. Rowling has people linked to Quidditch bring Harry messages about lessons with Dumbledore or detention with Snape in the 6th book, as I talked about in episode 24. So it's fitting that the voice of the Resistance has a Quidditch link. Lee goes from commentating on a mock war to a real one. Later, the Battle of Hogwarts itself is like an elaborate Quidditch game. Everyone must keep Voldemort and the Death Eaters away until Harry finds the Ravenclaw Horcrux, Rowena Ravenclaw's missing diadem. There are scores of metaphorical chasers, beaters, and keepers, instead of the chasers, beaters, and keepers who are metaphorical soldiers in the mock war of Quidditch. These quote-unquote players try to occupy the other side's players, while the Seeker, Harry, tries to catch the snitch, the diadem. They must also prevent the other team's Seeker, Voldemort, from catching the snitch he wants first, in this case, Harry. Draco, another Seeker, also tries to catch the Harry snitch. He's thwarted by the Slytherin beaters, Crabbe and Goyle, to whom everything, as always, resembles a bludger, something to hit. Harry searches for the diadem in the Room of Requirement, described as a labyrinth, like the Lestrange Gringotts Vault and the maze from the Triwizard Tournament. He engages in a battle with overtones of a game in a setting for mock wars, since this was where the DA trained. This time Harry catches a different snitch, Draco himself. So they're both Seekers here and are both equated with snitches. By catching him, Harry saves Draco from the fiend fire that destroys the diadem and kills Crabbe, the one who cast the spell. Crabbe is the second of 3 enemies whose own weapons are turned against them in the final leg of the book. First is Caro, Voldemort's choice for dark arts teacher, who tortures children and makes them torture each other. He suffers the Cruciatus curse at Harry's hand. This is again Harry sharing power with the powerless, the only acceptable way for him to use this curse, which is why he couldn't perform it before. Crabbe casts the Fiendfire spell and dies from it. And finally, Voldemort's own curse backfires and kills him. When Harry turns 17, the Ministry can no longer penalize him for using magic outside of school. This immediately tempts him to treat magic as a game. He summons his glasses, poking himself in the eye, and his shoelaces end up in knots. Ron is amused by his problems with day-to-day magic, which Harry never tried at school, though he could have. It's significant that he tries to use magic for things that are easily done without it. Part of learning the magic game rules involves being selective about it. Harry's birthday presents include a sneakoscope from Hermione, a useful toy that they use as a weapon to keep themselves safe while camping. He also receives, quote, an enormous box of the latest Weasley's Wizard Wheezes merchandise from Fred and George, which is useful for laughs or battles. Ron's present is a book about attracting witches for a different kind of battle, for love. Ron self-consciously follows the book's advice. However, Hermione is most taken with him when he shows concern for others. After they return from the Ministry with the locket Horcrux they stole from Umbridge during another mock Quidditch game in an arena-like setting, Rowling writes, Harry looked over at Hermione, and the question he had been about to ask died in his throat. Hermione was watching Ron fret over the fate of the Cattermoles, and there was such tenderness in her expression that Harry felt almost as if he had surprised her in the act of kissing him. A game that both Hermione and Harry play badly is the Voldemort name game. In earlier books, those hearing Harry or Dumbledore say Voldemort's name marveled at their bravery. Dumbledore repeatedly tried to impress on others that not saying the name gives it power it wouldn't otherwise have. When Harry says it in earlier books, there's no penalty, just as those avoiding it aren't truly safer. They just feel safer. Now this game has become a genuine life-or-death struggle. Voldemort knows that those who don't respect or fear him properly are most likely to say it. When they do, it's like a homing beacon is activated for finding his enemies, the flip side to the Deluminator, which Dumbledore gave to Ron, the one in the trio who's best at playing the name game. Barry Hughes, a game theorist, has applied the cooperation problem to the name game in the 7th book. In Harry Potter, Lord Voldemort and Game Theory, posted on GameTheoryStrategies.com on the 20th of July in 2011, Hughes wrote, "If everyone in the world had overcome their fear and spoken his name, then Voldemort would not have been able to find Harry. If Harry could have coordinated enough people to speak the name of he who must not be named, then he would have been safe from being discovered. But the risk of failing to coordinate is so great that no one wants to take the risk." Now, it isn't strictly true that Voldemort wouldn't be able to find Harry if he said the name with everyone else. The odds would be against it, but it would just be more of a challenge, and Voldemort might have decided that there was no point to the taboo if people were saying the name constantly. While I think Hughes is right about the risk of failing to coordinate being too great, even in a hypothetical in which a large number of people are coordinated and say the name simultaneously, after the first few people, or scores of people, turn up dead or tortured, the cooperative urge would probably evaporate, and no one else would want to be a guinea pig for this experiment. There has to be more of a potential payoff for cooperation, so this isn't really a viable solution. Even if tens of thousands of people plus Harry said the name all at once, there's still a chance that Voldemort could find him, and that many, many people would be sacrificed first. After Harry, Ron, and Hermione flee Bill and Fleur's wedding and are in a cafe on the Tottenham Court Road, Hermione says, "Voldemort's taken over the Ministry. What else do we need to know?" This triggers the taboo, and soon they're fighting, quote, "a pair of burly workmen," unquote, who enter the cafe immediately after she utters the name. The three of them succeed in subduing the workmen who are really Death Eaters, but have no idea how they were found. Playing a game without knowing that you're playing one, let alone knowing the rules, is one of the most dangerous things you can do in the Potterverse. It's only by chance that they heed Ron about the name. Harry's incensed at the idea of showing Voldemort respect by not saying it. Ron being wounded during apparating is the only thing that keeps Harry from arguing about it further. Ron stops Hermione from saying the name multiple times, but it's Harry who says it after learning that the name is taboo. They now know that they are playing a game, and they know the one rule of that game. But Harry loses the game because he's been following Dumbledore's example for years, so the game itself feels inherently wrong to him. Once they're in Hogwarts Castle, preparing for battle, Ron and Hermione disappear to Myrtle's bathroom. Ron remembers the word that Harry spoke in Parseltongue to unlock the locket Horcrux: open. This works for the chamber as well, and they retrieve the large supply of basilisk fangs that Ron joked about earlier, allowing Hermione to use one to destroy Hufflepuff's cup. Ron and Hermione have now played the Chamber of Secrets game that Harry and Ginny played in the 2nd book. 1. Say the secret word, speaking another language, a sign of spiritual maturity. 2. Enter the Chamber of Sexual Symbolism. 3. Get the weapon impregnated with basilisk venom. And 4. Destroy the Horcrux. Ron has been following the rules of a game to win Hermione, the book he gave to Harry. But this isn't what melts her heart. Instead, it's his concern for the house elves, creatures as disregarded by many wizards as Voldemort disregards anything connected to children and childhood. This is followed by a kiss whose equivalent Harry and Ginny didn't get until the 6th book, which inverts many events from the 2nd. Harry's ability to speak Parseltongue is a unifying power and not inherently dangerous. Despite the bad impression he creates at the dueling club in Chamber of Secrets, a mock war, Harry has never used this as a weapon. It's a weapon against Harry, however, when he and Hermione are in Godric's Hollow, since he doesn't realize that Bathilda Bagshot is speaking to him in snake language. Harry parses it as English, which nearly gets him and Hermione killed. Speaking Parseltongue opens the locket, so Harry does use it as a weapon in this scene. This is another reason that Voldemort sealed his own fate by targeting Harry. He gave him the means to destroy this Horcrux, which no one can do who can't say open in Parseltongue. This also gets Harry into the chamber to save Ginny, kill a basilisk, and destroy another Horcrux. And because Ron uses it to enter the chamber, Hermione can destroy a third Horcrux. Had Voldemort never targeted Harry, the locket, the diary, and the cup would likely have remained eternally intact, and Voldemort would have been immortal. So this is another weapon of Voldemort's that's turned against him, making his final defeat possible. While at Shell Cottage, Harry, Ron, and Hermione make plans with Griphook the Goblin to play the Gringotts game. It's a reprise on a more ambitious level of the first book, when Harry and Hagrid withdraw money for his school supplies and are unwittingly racing with Quirrell to reach the Philosopher's Stone first. Bill warns Harry, "If you have struck any kind of bargain with Griphook, and most particularly if that bargain involves treasure, you must be exceptionally careful. Goblin notions of ownership, payment, and repayment are not the same as human ones." He tells Harry that he may think he understands the rules to this game, but he doesn't. Bill also says, "It would be less dangerous to break into Gringotts than to renege on a promise to a goblin," not realizing that Harry's planning to do both. That Harry plans to cheat and do more than one dodgy thing during the Gringotts game is part of why the game is not only terribly difficult, but nearly fatal. The first obstacle in this game of Dungeons and Dragons, which it really is, complete with a dragon, is the Death Eater Travers, who notices Bellatrix, really Hermione, in Diagon Alley while he's on his way to Gringotts. Harry confunds the wizards who serve as guards at the bank's door so they don't detect him and Griphook under the invisibility cloak. Hermione used this spell the year before to manipulate who gets onto a Quidditch team, members of a metaphorical army. This charm also prevents the wizard guards from detecting Hermione's and Ron's magically altered appearances. Griphook is like a little devil on Harry's shoulder when he tempts him to use Imperius to deter a goblin from investigating further when he suspects that Hermione's an imposter. The rest of the game is more difficult from the moment that Harry engages in this bit of cheating. He also puts Imperius on Travers to get him to shut up about Hermione's wand and hide in a tunnel. But all of this becomes pointless when they reach the thief's downfall, which, quote, washes away all enchantment, all magical concealment, leaving Ron and Hermione looking like themselves and alerting the management that imposters are in Gringotts. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione enter the Lestrange vault, they learn more game rules. Touching the treasure will burn you, and this also makes each piece touched multiply into many worthless copies. After quite a bit of chaos, they finally acquire Hufflepuff's cup, but Hermione levitating Harry to do it, as if he's flying and catching a snitch, sets off a cascade of events. Griphook takes Gryffindor's sword, a small army of goblins arrives, armed with knives, and this leaves them no choice but to run toward a dragon. Bill told Harry that attempting to renege on a deal with a goblin was more dangerous than breaking into Gringotts. Harry did try to renege, so he doesn't completely succeed in his mission. He gets the cup, but at a price, and he mainly succeeds at this because he wants to blunt its power, not acquire treasure. He wins, having captured the cup, a snitch equivalent, but he cheats, so he loses the sword that could destroy it. What's happening to Harry, Ron, and Hermione now is as out of their hands as if they were under Imperius. Rowling writes, "There was no means of steering. The dragon could not see where it was going, and Harry knew that if it turned sharply or rolled in midair, they would find it impossible to cling onto its broad back." Harry puts Imperius on Travers and a goblin. He takes their wills from them. I believe that this is why Harry, Ron, and Hermione are stuck on a mostly blind runaway dragon soon afterward, completely out of control of their destination and their very lives. Before Harry goes into the forest to his death, there are many game-like battles that include jokes. After an elaborate Quidditch match in the Room of Requirement, when Harry catches Draco in lieu of a snitch, they encounter the Headless Hunt, a warlike game, or a game like war, which was last seen in the second book. Following this, Fred and Percy fight the Puppet Minister, a puppet being another toy, Pius Thickness. Percy jokes, "Did I mention I'm resigning?" as he curses his former boss. Fred's impressed more by the joke than the dueling. But then there is an explosion. Quote, "And Percy was shaking his brother, and Ron was kneeling beside them, and Fred's eyes stared without seeing, the ghost of his last laugh still etched upon his face." It's appropriate that Fred should have died in battle while laughing, since Fred, like his twin, is a seamless combination of war and jokes, from having the birth sign of the god of war, Ares, and being born on April Fool's Day, as I talked about in episode 17, The Goblet of Games. But it's also undeniably tragic, both because he's leaving behind his twin and because of the reunion with Percy and their bonding over a joke. A game that's ended is the House Cup competition. Harry, Ron, and Hermione flee the castle as the Slytherin hourglass is shattered and spills green emeralds everywhere. Dementors then make a comeback at Hogwarts, so Harry must conjure a Patronus, a skill he perfected to play a game, as I talked about in episode 15, The Prisoner of Quidditch, and episode 16, The Seeker. However, neither his, Ron's, nor Hermione's spells are up to the job, so they're rescued by Patronuses from Luna, Ernie, and Seamus, who learned to do this at Harry's knee in the DA, another mock war that segued into real war, now for all of its members. You've been listening to Quantum Harry the Podcast, a podcast version of the book Quantum Harry, A Unified Theory of the Potterverse by B.L. Purdom. All music heard on Quantum Harry is composed and performed by B.L. Purdom. Whether you're streaming on iTunes, Stitcher, CastBox, or another podcatcher, please leave a rating and/or a comment and share episodes of Quantum Harry with your friends. Next time on Quantum Harry, episode 27, Legacy. Part 3 of this 5-episode arc exploring toys, games, and fairy tales in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I hope you'll join me.